Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of Bloomerang TV. Thanks so much for tuning in. I am super excited today because this is actually episode number 50. This is our 50th episode. So I want to do something special. I wanted to bring on someone that I've been following online, been reading his blog, been reading his tweets for a long time. Had a great conversation with him on the phone last week, and super excited to welcome Michael Rosen to the show. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
Terrific. Thank you for having me and having me for this terrific 50th anniversary episode.
Yeah, this is special. You're in the Hall of Fame now for number 50. Michael, you are the president of ML Innovations, Inc. You're an AFP certified master trainer, and you're also the author of the best-selling book, Donor-Centered Planned Gift Marketing. There it is for all to see. Everyone should pick up that book, by the way. You've got a great blog as well. Every time you publish a new post, I always share that on Twitter. I'm always excited to read it. But before we launch into it, I want to give you a chance to talk about what you're up to, what you do these days over at ML Innovations.
Well, thank you. Yes, at ML Innovations, we do fundraising and marketing consulting. I work with small, mid-sized, and large nonprofit organizations, helping them with their annual funds, donor retention, mid-level donor, planned gift marketing, and one of my personal favorite areas to work with folks on is fundraising ethics.
Very cool, very cool. And based on some of your blog posts and presentations, I know you're a fellow fan, along with me, of calling donors and stewarding donors and cultivating donors. And I wanted to talk about donor cultivation today because I feel like it's sort of it's a buzzwordy topic. It's maybe a topic that gets lots of different kinds of definitions. Could you talk about, in your mind, what donor cultivation really is and what the point of it is and some of the things that nonprofits can gain from cultivating their donors?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, the difference between fundraising and development is when you start looking at the area of donor cultivation and education. If we're not doing a good job of cultivating our donors and stewarding them after they've made their gift, really we're not fundraising professionals. We're professional beggars.
Right.
And I don't think that's something we want to do. Cultivation, when done right, builds a relationship between the donor or prospective donor and the organization. And when you do that effectively, you're more likely to gain that person's support, gain more support than you would have otherwise from the individual, and have that support be longer lasting than it otherwise would be. Cultivation's an essential part of professional development. It's not a luxury.
Right. I really like that you make the distinction between fundraising and development, because I feel like the fundraising side gets a lot of attention, right? There's lots of people talking about how to make an effective ask and send out an effective appeal. And there's a lot of people talking about how to effectively acknowledge gifts and thank donors. But that in-between space, what you're talking about, that cultivation, seems super important. Like, what are some ways that you can cultivate donors beyond just sending appeals and newsletters and kind of the usual stuff that donors receive from nonprofits?
Well, I think one of the best ways to cultivate people is to pleasantly surprise them.
Mm-hmm.
Emphasizing the pleasantly part of that. And what you want to do is not worry about being super fancy with cultivation and developing, a 4-color annual report that's all shiny and glossy. And there are so many simple things that you can do to cultivate people and build the relationship. For example, I work with one international social service agency, and when the planned giving director went out into the field, traveled to El Salvador to visit one of their affiliate agencies, she came back with some snapshots that she had taken on her iPhone. And she went into her email, began sending off personal email messages with a couple of snapshots that she took while she was in El Salvador. She sent those emails to her lead prospects and donors, saying, "Hey, just got back from the field. Thought you'd be interested in seeing what we're up to. Here are a couple of snapshots I took while I was down there." She didn't have a professional photographer with her, fancy pictures. She didn't do some sort of fancy constant contact email newsletter. No, it was a one-on-one personal communication, like you would send an email to a friend or a colleague. And you know what happened? She got thank you messages from the people she was cultivating.
Nice.
And when was the last time, a fundraising person got a thank you from a donor for having cultivated them?
Right.
And that should always be our goal.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't have to be tied to like asking for a gift or a formal update on like campaign progress. It's just a simple, hey, this is something cool that happened. This is what's going on. Just wanted to share, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, the essence of cultivation is that it is absent in ask. The minute you put an ask in, it's not really cultivation. It's
right.
cultivation. And if the only time that people hear from you is when you have your hand out, then that's going to erode the quality of the relationship that you have with them.
Right. Is there like a secret formula to how often you reach out to cultivate a donor, what format? It seems like the examples that we talked about on the phone last week, they were just sort of, they weren't out of the blue, but they weren't rehearsed or scripted. They just, a fundraiser or someone in development sort of recognized an opportunity for cultivation rather than saying, oh, it's the 15th of the month, we better do a cultivation activity. What are we going to do? Is that more effective in your mind, or should the development or the fundraising people kind of set a schedule and try to stick to it?
I think that both have their place.
Mm-hmm.
I think to make sure that it happens, scheduling it is certainly an effective strategy. But always be on the lookout for those opportunities for additional touches that are maybe not going to be communicated to your entire file, but maybe to certain key individuals. Again, it's about relationships and so doing what comes naturally, but to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the daily paper shuffle, it is a good idea to schedule some cultivation activities. And when doing that, always be thinking about what cultivation means to the recipient, not to you as the fundraiser. What's in it for them? And if you're delivering value in that cultivation, they're going to enjoy it and it's going to be meaningful to them.
Right. Now, you are a fellow proponent, along with me, of phone calls. I love calling donors. I recommend all of our Bloomerang customers that they call donors, say thank you, tell them what's going on. And you told me a story last week when we were talking on the phone about, I think it was a higher education institution who called alumni asking them if they'd like to be invited to events. Can you maybe retell that story? Because I thought it was just such an amazing story. I wanted all the listeners to hear it, and not just me.
Well, absolutely. One of my college clients had a fairly localized alumni constituency, and they had great speakers that would come to campus. And so we did a test to see if people would be interested in receiving notification of when these speakers were coming to campus and if they'd like to attend. And we tracked the results over a multi-year period to see what would happen when we asked people. So in the annual fund calls, people were asked, would you like to receive a calendar of upcoming speakers coming to campus. And we tracked who said yes, who said no. We then tracked what the results of giving were. The people who were interested in receiving the calendar and the invitation to upcoming lectures were far more likely to give, and were far more likely to give more. The interesting thing about the study was it did not impact attendance at these lectures at all. People who said that they were interested in getting the calendar didn't go to the lectures. There was perceived value, however, in simply being given the option to go to the lecture. And then it was their choice whether or not to exercise that option. So it had a tremendous impact on their development program.
That's amazing. What's the old saying? If you want money, ask for help. If you want help, ask for money. It kind of applies to that situation, I think.
Yeah. And there are a variety of ways to engage people in the solicitation phase of the development effort. So I don't think we need to look at cultivation and solicitation in silos. I think something that certainly can be blended at times. And so there was a hospital client that I had where we tested the message of thanking them for their past support, letting them know where their money went last year, which was to acquire a new MRI unit, and then asking them for their gift for this year's project, which was to enhance the cardiac care unit. We found that when we did that versus simply thanking people for their support last year and this year, this is what we're trying to do, when we told them where the money went, we had a 68% increase in results. And so what it's really about is taking the donor's story and making it part of your story.
Right.
They supported us. So how can we make sure that we close that loop and let them know what that support meant to us? And when you do that, people are going to be more likely to not only continue their support, but be even more generous.
Yeah, communicating impact is huge.
And it's one of those things that, yeah, it's common sense.
Right.
But you know what? When it becomes common practice, I'll stop talking about it.
Yeah, it's not caught on widely, I would say. Well, Michael, before I let you go, what's one piece of advice you would give to maybe a small nonprofit who's not doing any of this kind of stuff, but they want to get started? They're just not sure where to start. What's one piece of advice you would give to a budding donor cultivator?
Don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be time consuming. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be expensive. What it does need to be is personal and heartfelt. And the simplest thing that someone can do is that shiny, usually black box on their desk with flashing lights. That's a telephone.
Yes.
People pick it up. When they receive a donation, they should pick it up, call the donor, thank them for their support, and then engage them in a conversation. Learn more about the donor and why the donor is supporting the organization, which aspects of your mission are meaningful to the donor. And if you have that conversation and then take good notes, you'll know better how to continue to work with that donor in the future, and you'll surprise the heck out of them.
Yeah, you will.
Another simple strategy, handwritten thank you notes. In this electronic age, people expect word processed letters, they expect computer generated receipts, they expect emails. What they almost never get are handwritten notes. And I'll tell you, my handwriting is so bad that I don't think people can actually read my notes. They just know they got a note from me.
Right.
And I've received thank you notes for my thank you notes.
Whoa.
So, again, if your donors start thanking you for cultivating them, you know you're on the right track.
I love it. Michael, you're kind of my hero.
Well, shucks. Now you're making me blush.
This is great. Thanks so much for sharing that advice. Where can people find out more about you? I want people to read your blog, follow you on Twitter and all that.
Well, my blog is michaelrosensays.wordpress.com, and there they can subscribe to the blog, get a free copy of a plant giving ebook by Texas Tech researcher Dr. Russell James. And also I have my contact information at that blog site as well, so people can follow me on Twitter at ML Innovations as well.
Very cool. We'll link to all that for sure. Michael, thanks for being here. This is awesome. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us.
Stephen, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the work you're doing there at Bloomerang.
Yeah, it's fun. Well, number 50 is a wrap. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week for another great episode. Hope to see you again soon. Go call a donor right now, right after you finish watching this. It'll do you some good. Bye now.